Away they go, really good start there from Jeremiah Azu. He's got some running to do here, but Glaive is going really well on the near side. Oh, and he's pulled up, and the hamstring has gone again, and it's 1 and 2 for Great Britain there.
The men's 100-meter final at the 2026 European Championships had one goal for Lamont Marcell Jacobs: win it, and become only the third man in history to take 3 European sprint titles in a row. He was flying all season. Then, halfway through the race, everything changed in one single step. Jacobs came into that final looking untouchable. Off the blocks, all 3 main contenders got away clean: Jacobs, Romell Glave, and Jeremiah Azu, each reacting in under 0.14 seconds. That's a world-class start, the kind that separates elite sprinters from everyone else on the track. Through the first step, the race was tight. Nobody had an edge yet. Then, at the 60-meter mark, the picture flipped. Glaive hit that checkpoint first, in 6.54 seconds. Azu was right behind him in 6.58 seconds. 2 British sprinters pulling clear, with the home crowd in Birmingham roaring them on. And then, everyone's eyes turned to Jacobs. He pulled up. Right there, in the middle of the biggest race of his season, the 2-time defending champion slowed down and grabbed at his leg. At first, it looked like he just lost his rhythm, like his stride had simply broken down under pressure. That happens sometimes in sprinting. A sprinter tightens up, loses their form for a stride or two, and fights through it. But this wasn't that. This was something physical, something sudden. Jacobs later confirmed he was dealing with an injury in one of his legs. His race and his shot at history ended in an instant, right in front of a stadium full of fans who had come to watch him make history. With Jacobs out of it, the final stretch belonged to Glaive. He drove through the line in 10.09 seconds, claiming his first European 100-meter title. Behind him, Azu held on for silver in 10.10 seconds. Germany's Owen Ansah rounded out the podium in 10.19 seconds, denying the host nation a full sweep of the medals by the smallest of margins. There was a headwind working against the field too, negative 0.4 meters per second. Take that wind away, and a sub-10-second finish was well within reach for the winner. Wind conditions don't ask for permission though, and every sprinter in that field had to fight through it anyway, Jacobs included, right up until his leg gave out. Now here's why Jacobs pulling up hit so hard. This wasn't just another title defense for him. He already won gold at this event in 2022. He defended it again in 2024. A win in Birmingham would have made him only the 3rd man in history to capture 3 European 100-meter titles in a row. The only 2 men who had ever done that before him were Valery Borzov from the old Soviet Union and Britain's own Linford Christie, 2 names that belong to a completely different era of the sport. That is the kind of company Jacobs was chasing when his leg gave out, and it's the kind of chance that doesn't come around every season, even for an Olympic champion. And it wasn't just about chasing history from a title standpoint. Jacobs was arriving at these championships in the best sprinting form of his entire career. Weeks earlier, he ran a 100 meters in 9.67 seconds. Read that number again. Under any wind condition, in the entire history of the sport, only one man has ever run faster than that, and that man is Usain Bolt. Jacobs' run had a massive tailwind behind him, positive 4.1 meters per second, more than double the legal limit, so it can never count as an official record. But it still told you everything about where his speed was heading. That time even beat Tyson Gay's old wind-aided mark of 9.68, a number that had stood since 2008. For a few weeks, Marcell Jacobs was unofficially the 2nd fastest man who ever lived. So when he walked out for the final in Birmingham, this was a man riding the best form of his life, chasing a piece of history that only 2 sprinters had ever touched. The semifinals only built that expectation higher. In the 3rd and final semifinal heat, Jacobs put on a clinic. He got out of the blocks clean, hit 60 meters in a strong 6.54 seconds, then closed the race with total control. He crossed the line in 10.08 seconds, and he wasn't even pushing at the end. He eased up before the finish line, coasting to the win. All of that happened with a headwind of negative 0.6 meters per second, which makes the time even more impressive. A headwind slows a sprinter down, and he still ran that fast while barely trying. At that point, it looked like a formality. Jacobs looked sharp, confident, and completely in control of his own body. Nobody watching that semifinal thought the final would go any other way, which is exactly what makes the final so hard to watch back. The same man who eased off the gas in his semifinal, the same man who ran the second fastest 100 meters in recorded history just weeks earlier, was suddenly grabbing his leg with 100 meters still on the clock. Now think about what Glaive did with that opening. 2 years earlier, at the previous European Championships, he stood on the podium in third place, bronze. He said afterward that going into this season, his main goal was simple: become King of Europe. He said he wasn't happy with bronze 2 years ago, that he felt like a different athlete now, and that he had been dreaming about this moment since the start of the season. Now he's a champion, on home soil, in front of his own fans, beating a field that included one of the fastest men alive. That's the kind of jump that defines a career. 2 years ago, he was chasing the leaders. Now he is the leader. He also became only the 6th British man ever to win the European 100-meter title, and just the 3rd Brit to do it in the last 6 editions of these championships. For Jacobs, the story is far more painful. This was a man who just weeks earlier had run the 2nd fastest 100 meters ever recorded under any conditions. A man chasing a European three-peat that only 2 sprinters in history had ever achieved. And instead, his championship ended with him grabbing his leg on the track, watching 2 British sprinters finish what he came to Birmingham to do. Injuries in sprinting can be brutal like that. One moment, you're building toward one of the biggest results of your career. The next moment, a single step changes everything. Sprinters push their bodies to extremes most people can't imagine, and the margin between glory and heartbreak is razor thin. Jacobs found that out in the worst possible way, in the worst possible moment, on one of the biggest stages in European track and field. What happens next for him is the real question. Is this a short setback, something he recovers from in a matter of weeks? Or is this the start of a longer battle, the kind that keeps a sprinter out of major races for months? Nobody outside his medical team knows that yet, and putting a timeline on a leg injury before the scans and the rest period even begin is guesswork. What we do know is this: the man was running historic times just weeks before this injury happened. The talent and the speed are still there. The only question left is whether his body will let him use it again, and how soon. For Glaive and Azu, this result changes their season completely. Glaive now enters every future race as a European champion, not a promising sprinter chasing the leaders. That title changes how competitors see him on the start line, and it changes how he sees himself every time he steps into the blocks.